Yeah.
Boom.
So Paula, my creative coordinator, she deals with all the designers, and we talk about what I want. And I'd like a configuration book and some folios, and I want this. But yeah, I want, because I don't want to influence their creative direction, and I would. I'd be like, that's really cool, but I probably would have put that over there. But I don't. I can do me.
Yeah.
I want them to do them.
Right.
So I make samples of them. And so at the show, I look at stuff and it's like, wow. And that's what I love about the Designer Challenge. Every winter, it's my favorite thing. So here we have 22 designers. They have a panel and 13 bottles of distress paint. That's it. No instruction. We're like, how do you distress? And we have people freaking out. I mean, we have Amy Tan, we have Elizabeth Karchner, Kathy Chica, Allie Edwards, and they're like, well, what do you want me to do? I'm like, whatever you do. I'm like, well, I don't really do grungy. I'm like, they don't. You'll see that bright rainbow one that's like sticking out of the grid right on the top? That's Jennifer McGuire. Because that's what she is. She's like a giant bag of Skittles. Like she's just, if it's not really colorful, it's not her. But anything you see is very clean and very colorful, right? And that's what's so cool. So that's how they would use the product. And I think even as showrunners coming here, you really need to take that away as well. As much as you like what you like, you really need to see stuff that's a little bit different, because you have all different types of customers that are going to come in and say, I didn't think I liked distress because it's kind of dirty and brown and I don't like that. And then you see that, that's distress.
That's where I had the trouble when I first bought this company. The woman who owned it was very old-fashioned, so everything was very old lady, and they were like...
And it's tough. I mean, it is tough because it's your business, so you want to maintain your passion, but you also need to balance, kind of keeping your business fresh to different people. Yeah, I mean, I've learned that with distress. Obviously, the whole line started with 4 brown ink pads and a black ink pad. Like, you even speak in color. I'm like, I don't want red. Blue? No. It's brown. And then slowly I was like, oh, let's add some colors. And then just last year I was like, oh, let's throw in some bright colors like pink raspberry. And it stirred everything up because it still complements with what they have, but it opened it to a whole different group of people that see distress a little different. And they probably would never own a brown distress pad ever. You'll see some of the samples in the booth. Whenever you spot like a really bright sample, Mo Saha, if you know her, she's a great mixed media artist. She only uses distress and not ever any shade of brown or gray. Never. She's the mustard seed, spice marmalade. Yeah, that's what she uses. I love it. It's really cool. It's really rewarding. All right, so is there a certain product that you wanted to see that I didn't cover that maybe you're interested in? That's hopefully a Ranger? Of course.
It's
yes.
And then Diane used the pink dabbers, right?
The Adirondack dabbers.
Yes. So now how does that compare to the distress paints? What's the main difference? Because one of them she said would remain wet. Does that make sense? No.
Okay, would remain wet.
You say it would not dry. Or because you spray paint on it, these react again with water, yes or no? No. Once dry, they don't react.
Distress paint, correct.
Exactly. So you can paint in essence with both.
Yeah, I think what she was referring to is her ink sprays will not dry on this.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
All right.
So Adirondack was the first paints we ever did. I would say that Adirondack would be compared to your basic crafting paint.
Yes.
If you're talking like a 97-cent bottle of paint, that would be Adirondack. It has fillers in it, so I don't know if you guys were finger painting or whatever, but it has like a chalky kind of feel to it. Okay? It's got fillers. That's like a normal paint. Right, so it kind of sticks to the surface, and if you try to wet it, it doesn't have any translucent factor at all. It's just, it kind of becomes a little muddy, right? So distress, I wanted an acrylic paint, but I wanted a paint that would work like an ink. Okay? So distress paint is a very fluid paint, has a mixing ball in there, so we shake it up. This, of course, will paint every surface that goes to it. It'll paint wood, it'll paint metal, it'll paint plastic, but it's reacting with water, whereas the Adirondack ones aren't. When you spray them, they're just kind of a mess, right? So these, if I wanted to go with colors, let's take something a little more exciting. Now, throw in some bright colors, right? So if I wanted to work with this, here's some cool things about this paint. So first of all, if I want to go in and paint, I can shake these. Like I said, really, really fluid. So if I dab it and squeeze it, I'm going to get a ton of paint out, so I don't even need to do that. I can just use it almost like a paint marker. If I want texture, I can use it right from the bottle like this, or if I wanted to take blending foam or even my finger, I can smooth this out, or I can even soften this out. Now, what's really interesting about this, and I'll show you, let's paint a little bit more on here. And let's just even show you like with your fingers and you smooth it out. I'm gonna go in and dry this. Now, usually with acrylic paints, they tell you never to heat dry them. I always heat dry this. It won't blister or bubble. So I like that. I like this, but it will still air dry just the same. But I want to point out something like when this paint dries on a surface. So the nice thing about this colorant is that it has a very soft hue when it's done. It doesn't have any satin or any shine or any gloss. But it also, what's interesting, it doesn't have any texture. So I'll hand you this tag. When you sit and you slide your finger across, you won't feel any paint. It's just going to feel like paper. It has no filler. No, it has no fillers at all.
It won't add.
Yeah, it will add no texture ever. Yeah. So it's also going to react with water, meaning if I wanted to use colors on a surface, I can go in with different colors, add those on my craft sheet. I can add it directly to, so like when you guys were working on the canvas, you could take this and put it right on a canvas just like that, but when I wet this, everything's going to react. Okay? And it's going to react the way ink would react.
But react before you dry.
Right, once it dries, it's totally permanent. It's the only permanent product in the whole Distress line.
Right.
So that means I can use the same effect on fabric. I can watercolor on fabric. I can put it on metal. I can put it on wood like we did there. Anything. I can stamp on plastic, transparencies, mirror, glass, anything. So if I mix this with water, and then I take a tag or surface, or you can take a journal page, I can swipe through this. And another interesting thing about these paints is they will always maintain their color integrity. So see how it's like a rainbow, even though by then you think, oh, that's going to turn into mud? These won't. So once I have that on the surface, I can start drying that. If I want them to react even more, I can just drip some water on there, and you're going to see that the paints even start to marbleize. You'll see there. See how the paints marbleize within themselves? That's the formulation of this particular paint. So we call it a paint, but it's really interesting because we didn't start with any acrylic paint base. Because I'm like, I want it like an inky paint. I don't want pigment ink because pigment ink's really like oily. But I want to paint, and these could be as opaque as you want them to be. If you wanted it to be solid, it would.
But it will hold the stress. Ink on it afterwards.
Okay. Markers, stains, inks, anything. Yeah, or it would work as a resist.
Okay.
So here I stamped with paint. Because it's so fluid, you could put it through a stencil or a stamp. That one's stenciled, but you could also stamp with the paints. So if I have something, let me just block this up. I'll show you this. We'll get this dry. So first of all, the background's really cool because the background looks like something you would have done with wax or ink or something like that, but that whole thing is done with paint. Now, if you wet this, it's completely permanent. Nothing's going to happen to it.
Once it dries.
Once it dries. But while it's wet, you can do the dance. You can spray it and spritz it and get all of those effects. I'm just going to take off the water. It's funny, after CHA when I demo, I watch like videos of where they go back and they're like, okay, so once it's dry, you're going to spray it with water. I'm not really sure why we do that, but then we try it again. That's what he did. So I was trying to point out, like, you don't need to do that. It's just for visual demonstration. But it is. It's funny watching videos. Like, I don't know why he did that, but I don't know. We spray it.
If Tim did it, we need to do it.
Yeah, right. Because Tim did that.
Well, thank you. Now it's a note in the video, and nobody will do it.
That's right. Yeah. So we're going to take a little mini. We're going to take a mini blending tool and Distress Mini. I'm just going to add a little bit of ink on here, and I'll show you some of the fun things that we can do with this. So what's cool about this, obviously we can use the mini pads. We could still go in with the large pad. I'll probably go in because I want a little bit more of this color, and I have it already on this foam. So if I want to intensify that blue, so see how I'm adding that over there? I can do that, but what else is really cool is that I can go through and break through my ink layer. So it's not going to re-wet my paint, but it is going to re-wet my inks because my inks are never permanent. So by doing that and kind of blotting it off, I can create a really cool speckle effect. I can drip through it. It's a really simple way to blend, and I don't know, I always tell people it makes you look like you know what you're doing, but you don't need to. If I want to take a stencil, for example, let's take a layering stencil. Maybe we want to take something. Take something like, oh, what do we do? Let's do something new. What's that new lattice? What's that on? So let's say we want to use this one. This is a great stencil because this has a lot of opening areas. Now, remember when you're working, paper doesn't have a memory. So if you have customers that just hate getting things wet because they worry about paper curling, paper won't remember. So if it's curled, just uncurl it. And it'll sit flat. So we'll take a spritzer. Let's put a marker in there. I don't know what I want to use. Use something. We could use gathered twigs in there. It's fine. So we're just going to take a marker. We're going to slide that in so the tip is lined up to the top. Just going to tighten that down with the screw. And now this becomes a spritzing system for the marker. It's just going to spritz air right off of the top of that. We love that in class. But this I'm going to go through a stencil. This is like old school. This tool's been around for a bazillion years, but never in our mainstream market. Yeah. We can throw a Sharpie in there. Throw a Sharpie, we can throw in a Copic, we can throw in whatever. Yeah, so then we can add that as a layer as well, and we could dry that, right? But keep in mind that at this point, once we start adding ink, anything that we put over the top of that is going to re-wet, except for the paint. So if I wanted to stamp something and make it permanent, I would stamp with paint, right? Stamp with Archival. So to me, the distress paints just have a little bit more, they have a little bit more play, but dyes ink sprays will not dry on top of distress paints.
That was my main question.
It will not.
Tim,
She wishes it would, because she's like, but that's because that filler in Adirondack is what makes it porous and allows that to absorb. And because this has no filler, it would just wipe off. It would never dry. Just like this. If I don't heat dry this marker, it's just going to always smear off until it dries.
if you emboss an image before you put the paint on, does the embossed image resist the paint, or will it actually paint right on top of it?
No, it can resist, but it's still paint. So you would have to paint it on and then lightly wipe over your embossed image with a damp cloth while the paint was wet.
Okay.
Because remember, embossing powder is plastic, and distress paint sticks to plastic.
Okay.
You know, so if you paint over everything and you let it dry and then you try to wipe it off, it's not going to come off. But it will allow you to kind of take that off, which is cool. Yeah.
Are all of these safe? Like, say if I wanted to do this on a background, because I mostly scrapbooking. Can I put a picture over top of this?
Maybe yes.
It's not going to eat through whatever, and it's all safe?
And that's all relative, just so you know.
Yeah. Oh, I know. In 100 years when I'm not here, it won't matter, but, you know.
Right.
I don't, 5 years from now, I don't want
to. The whole acid-free thing, you know, I get it. You don't want to dip your page in battery acid. But at the same time, the moment you touch this paper, acid. That's what you are. Your pH.
Yeah.
You know? So, for people that, as soon as you touch a photo, acid. You know? So, I tell people, like, use what you like, because there's a lot of people that won't even use, like, ephemera on a project. Like, if they went to a play, they won't use the ticket. How are you? Because they're like, oh, I don't know what kind of paper it is. It's like, come on, these are your memories. You know.
I use everything. I just watch.
Adhesive is what you should watch more than anything.
Yeah, but I just watch what I put my picture on, because I don't want in 15 years while I'm still alive for the picture to be eaten away. And, to be
no, these are,
I've actually had more. It's not what you put it on; it's what you put it in. See, my pictures have gotten ruined from a long time ago when they were in the sleeves that were not acid free at that time, and they all turned like a nice browny yellow, and so I took them all out, you know, because they blurred, like all the colors blended together. You couldn't even do the images anymore. Yeah.
Really cool. It's vintage. Yeah. All right. Anything else you guys want to say?
So you can paint on metal with these. Do you have to prime the metal at all? Like if you did jewelry and you have to seal it?
You do not, and you do not. But I always tell people, if you're going to do jewelry and it's going to be wearable, it's always good to seal it, simply because jewelry tends to clank across each other. But no, you can put it, like for example, right on wood, right on metal, and you don't need to prime it. It's permanent. So yeah, so these are good. Like if you're going to use these though on jewelry, alcoholic, because these work on metal. So if you were going to do it like I did a piece of metal on your tag, you would want to seal that because again the pH in your skin is going to eat away at the salt. You would just do it without regular UV coat or anything like that.